segment 2. We are $250,000 into the show because we know we make $1 million a show here, right? So,
Obviously.
yes, we do. Who is that voice over there? Okay. I've been waiting for this. This is a big, big, big deal. I don't know why, but I don't know. Maybe I'm a little Twitter-pated. Okay. So as you all know, we're bringing in today a cornerstone of the Los Angeles or Hollywood studio, a cornerstone show, the headliner, as they say in the concert world.
Wait a second, can you see me? Because I feel like I see a square on your screen and it's just like a fraction of my head, which is so weird, but I can see myself on Skype just fine.
Yeah, well, I see you. There's a screen in the corner of my screen. Now, I don't know if Scott can make that half screen. I don't really know. But you look...
It looks like you're not really seeing my whole face, which is so weird.
We see your beautiful face.
All right, cool.
Okay.
All right.
Now, can we make that half screen back and forth? Or? Okay, so, all right, Nadia, thank you for interjecting in the middle of my monologue. I appreciate that. I know. You're a boss lady. That's what you guys do. I'm surrounded by them. But anyway, let me introduce the voice that came in. My new friend, Nadia Rosso. Did I get that right?
No, you got it right on our phone call.
But
you totally butchered it right now, which I think it was intentional.
I have a phobia about names, Nadia. It's part of my identity.
You butchered that intentionally. I think that was like your revenge for my interrupting your intro.
Okay. Okay.
All good. It's Rousseau.
It's Rousseau. That's what I said. Rousseau, kind of like the guy from the Pink Panther.
Like Rousseau.
Well, it's got that little French thing going for it. But anyway, I'm glad we're such good friends because I have a phobia about names, Nadia. I really do. I practice and practice and practice, and at the very minute I butcher them, just like my algebra test back in college. That's how I flunked out of college. I did really well, but until the test time. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this is a big deal because Nadia has a great show on our Hollywood channel called Nadia's Identity Files. And, you know, for an old guy like me, I'm like, what is all that about? But I'm telling you, some of the guests that come on the show, would you consider your show deep?
Would I consider it deep?
Like intellectually, you got to be you can't be, you got to be a little intellectually deep to kind of get it, or?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you this, is like, I mean, a lot of the content, a lot of the subject matter that we cover is certainly could be a little difficult to digest. So that's why I try to make it as attainable, or accessible, I guess, rather, as possible. I mean, I could definitely dial up the language if I wanted to, but I was like, no, I gotta keep it accessible.
Is it redneck friendly?
Is it redneck friendly?
Yeah. Can we understand it?
Not, but I would definitely, I'm from a redneck place. I grew up around rednecks, like all literally.
Yeah,
I went to high school in a town of 2,000 people. Like I was like surrounded by cornfields on the bus on the way to my school.
Wow. And now
I would definitely be open to having redneck on my show all day, every day. Well, not every day, but you know what I mean.
Why do I have a funny feeling you would tease them if they were on your show without them knowing it? That would be it. You'd be saying stuff and they wouldn't even know that you were like putting them down.
No, they probably wouldn't.
Okay, Nadia, we want to talk about you. We want to talk about you. Now, I've been introduced to your show, so if anybody is really gripping right now, Nadia's show is Tuesdays, except for next week, Tuesdays at 11 at WCOBM. Click the Hollywood channel, and you will watch this show. And she has some really intellectual, deep-thinking guests.
Indeed. Indeed.
Yeah, so let's talk about Identity Files, because I was kind of confused at first. Is that just, we just talk about what makes people click, or is it deeper than that? Tell us what's that all about.
So, can you reframe your question a little bit? Like, what do you mean
What is this, Jeopardy? Okay, so I'm asking you, is when you say identities, like Danny Vegas has an identity, Nadia has an identity, everybody has their identities. Are we just talking about what make the individual click, or is it deeper than that?
Well, I mean, I think Definitely you yourself, of course, know the answer to that because you've watched a lot of the shows. But for those who have not, I mean, when it comes to identity is such a multi-dimensional construct, you know? Like, it's not as though we walk around with only one identity. We might have one overarching identity, but within that one identity, we have many other identities, some of which have been influenced by how we grew up, some influenced by how we work, where we live, ethnicity, religious affiliation, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, there's a lot of different angles that my show takes, certainly. Like, usually what we do is I take a specific theme and I find people that have some sort of connection to that theme, say identity and stem cell research. And then we use that theme to flesh out deeper aspects of those individuals' identities and how like everything is interrelated and just a lot of cool conversation.
Okay, I have a question for you. So you said that identities have a lot to do with our environment and our religion that we were brought up in, or where we were born, or what ethnicity we are. So my question to you, is there any part of an identity that is born, and is it all just learned behavior?
I would say that yes. And you know what? I wrote a really cool research paper based off a book that I read. Everybody should read it. It's called In the Skin of a Lion. And there's a character in that book who goes through a huge change. It's set in Canada. He was an immigrant. And so what I was looking at is I was using a caterpillar as a metaphor because the caterpillar obviously goes through a significant change in its life. It metamorphoses into a butterfly, or in some cases a moth, right?
Right, right.
But interestingly, even though it becomes a completely different creature, it retains its same DNA. So there's a part of it that's never going to change, even though outwardly it looks completely different. So I do think that we have an inborn identity. We have definitely, we're going to take this to a spiritual level. We have an inner essence that sometimes gets, I guess, not even maybe discarded or like just swept under the rug by all of these other identities that are put onto us, oftentimes by society or by friends, family, or even on ourselves. We often, probably most of it is put onto ourselves, and sometimes we lose touch with really who we are.
So basically, it's a little bit of both.
Absolutely.
A little bit of both. So, because I'm always in the argument of nature and nurture. Back when I was a younger man, I believe there was a lot of nurture. I thought there was a lot of, men roles are because that's the way men were born and that's the way women were born. And as I got older and maybe a little bit wiser, I realized that for the most part, human beings are learned animals. There's really nothing instinctive besides maybe if someone's punching in your face, you put your hands up. But other than that, for the most part, everything is pretty much learned, et cetera, et cetera. Your political beliefs are learned. Your religious beliefs are learned. The way you wear your hair is learned. Everything is pretty much learned, which can get us into a lot deeper stuff. So it's always curious to me what I love about your show is you do talk about these multiple identities and how people can have different identities. And I always try to put that in the factory of like you had the guys that dressed up like girls, okay? The drag guys or whatever, the gentlemen that...
My drag performers.
Yes. Yeah. And, and I find that, how women look in today's society is a learned behavior over many centuries. So I'm curious why men who are the way we are because of hundreds of years and thousands of years of learned behavior, what makes them have this feeling or need or whatever, or what identity to feel to dress like a woman. I find that fascinating why that is in that particular case. And I found that show very fascinating that you had. So I really like the thought process of like, why is there different identities? And if they're all learned, where did we learn them? And maybe they're not so learned. Maybe there's something in the DNA, and it's just fascinating to me. But
Sure.
But anyway, Nadia, hey, we just split $125,000. We're going to be done with this segment, getting ready for segment 3 with Nadia from Nadia Infinity Files from Hollywood right after this.